Hi there everyone, it's Cindy Pope at the Cool Tools Studio. I'm here to introduce you to my new goddess templates. It's a 3-template set, and I'm going to show you a couple easy projects, one of them mixed metal, that you can make with the templates. Let me show you the tools that we're going to be using for this project. We're going to use olive oil and distilled water. We're going to use tiles. I'm using 2 smaller tiles and a larger tile to roll on. I've got a rolling pin. I've got applicator brushes, a little sanding sponge, Aureus and Cyprus, because we're making our piece from Cyprus, but we're going to paint on Aureus slip to give us a mixed metal look. Rolling frames. Here's my Aureus slip I prepared, and the goddess templates. You also need a scalpel, a flat brush to paint on, and we always use our little detail brush to add whatever we want. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make the base for these earrings, and here are the earrings we're making, and we're making a copper earring out of Cyprus, and then we're going to fully fire it, and once we fully fire it, we're going to paint on bronze, and then you'll put it in with your next bronze load, and I just love the look of 2 mixed metals, and bronze and copper go beautiful together. So let's go ahead and make our first piece. I'm going to be using 3 cards. I like to oil my Teflon, and you can use Teflon or you can use silicone. I really like silicone a lot. I don't think it's too sticky. I have my Cyprus clay, and I'm going to show you I'm going to make one of the earrings. This would also be a really pretty pendant. And when I am done with my clay, I put it back in one of the original containers, and I create a humidifier. You can also get short-term while I'm working, but you can also get a humidifier to keep it in all the time that Cool Tools sells. So I'm going to, this silicone roller doesn't need a lot of oil. You don't want to put too much oil in your clay. All you need is just a little bit, and I'm going to roll it both ways. Then I'm going to fold it over a couple times and roll it again. So this one does not have a texture on it, so we're going to go straight to the cutting tile, which will save your Teflon or your silicone a lot. Don't need a lot of oil again here. This is not a clay that sticks like to a lot of the surfaces. I think it comes up really easily. So I'm making 3 pieces. I'm going to make a back piece and an overlay. Then I'm also going to show you how to make this piece that's open, which I think is really pretty. And that's all using the template B. I'm going to move this off. And I'm going to go with the middle size. So this template you can cut here, here, or here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this inside shape and then do the cutout for the earring that is open. One reason I like this style of template is there's so many different choices of what you can make with it. And go slow as you're going around the curves. Another better reason to use a scalpel instead of a X-Acto knife, because the thin blade just really moves nicely over the tile. So I'm going to go ahead and just slice it across at the top and the bottom, and then I'll even that out with a sandpaper when it's dry. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make these pieces with the original and the overlay. So I'm going to do the outside shape, and then I'm going to do a little teeny tiny internal goddess for the overlay. And I'm not putting a stone in this one, but you certainly could put a stone in the overlay. You only want to use the flat back CZs. And now I just need one more, and this little one. And you could also be really pretty to put a texture on the front or the back. This one I need to cut also. And then I'm going to dry these all, and I'll have an extra one of these. So our pieces are dry and off the drying surface. This one just needs a hole, so let's go ahead and put the hole in. I'm going to grab my ball burrs. I'm going to use this tile to sand over because I don't want to get sand on my silicone. And again, I always start with a littler one and go up from there. I think that's going to be a good size because you see, you also don't get too close to the edge when you start with a small one. And then I'm just going to curve up. You know, in this particular template, the only negative is you're having to cut where it joins to give you multiple sizes and shapes. So I'm just going to refine the edge, and pretty much that piece is done. I'm not going to have the point be quite as pointy. And these sanding sponges really make nice work of refining. And it cuts beautifully and dries beautifully, so really it doesn't need very little finishing. So this piece is done. That's an earring. So this one we're going to actually join. I cut my holes last, so I am going to sand the top a little bit and make it a little more even and attractive. And then I'm going to show you how I do my joining. I like to really pick up slip on the base piece and on the overlay piece. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to spray some water, take a little bit of Cyprus clay, and an applicator brush. And I'm just going to use this. This is kind of an informal way of making slip, and it's very watery. So what I want to do is I'm going to put water on the back here, and I'm actually picking up slip and rehydrating the surface because this join needs to be really good. Cypress joins really nicely, but you do need to give it some slip and more water than you would with silver, with Easy 960, which is my silver of choice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to figure out where I want to put it and push it down a little bit, and that's going to leave a mark where I need to put water on the base instead of having it going way out over the edges. And again, I'm using this because it brings up, it's got nap on the end, and it really brings up the clay. And with Cypress, you need to join well. It has a high shrinkage rate of 20%, which is really cool. You can work large. And then when I've got this wet enough, I'm going back and I'm going to re-wet this one. And it's not right straight slip. You need water too because the water is what's rehydrating. I'm using a combination of both. I'm going to put it down, and you want to center it. And once you get centered, give it some pressure. Centering is my difficulty. Going to give it some pressure and hold it down for 30, 40 seconds. That's going to really encourage the joint. I've done this and then misplaced it and tried to get it off, and I had a hard time getting it off. We are going to reinforce, though. I'm all about reinforcing all your pieces. Okay, so now it's well joined. And I'm going to take my little Princeton brush, which gets beautifully into these edges, and I'm just going to run it along the edges. And I do all my joinings with a double reinforcement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go dry this completely, and then I'm going to come and I'm going to reinforce again and do a hole. I've dried it, and I'm going to reinforce one more time. And then we're going to drill the hole and refine the piece. You always want to refine your piece so it looks as good as it can be, because it saves you a lot of time. So that's just sanding and smoothing with either a baby wipe or sanding stick. So, but I always recommend reinforcing twice. Many years of things falling off. So there we go. She's all ready, and I'm going to put the ball on the bottom. And the way I do balls is I take what we call dirty water. I learned this from Anna Mazzone, who's a wonderful artist, and she does a lot of dry construction, and she taught me how to join balls. These are flat back balls that I make ahead and I put in a container. And the best tweezers for adding these are these little tiny pointed tweezers. So I'm going to take and make the spot I'm going to put the ball on receptive by adding water. And I'm using this dirty water, so it's kind of like a very, very light slip. And so this has been sitting in a little puddle, so it's all the outside parts are nice and wet. And I put it in that little puddle, and then I take it and I go back and forth and press. I'm going to put this on the drying surface, and I will reinforce that again. Okay, so we have dried this, reinforced once, and put on our ball. So all we have to do now is we need to put a hole in it, and we're going to reinforce the ball and dry it again. And then we're going to fire. Again, I'm starting with a smaller burr than I think I need. And I think this burr actually ended up being just right. And a lot of people use their micromotor or their flex shaft to do this. I like the control of doing it by hand. And then I'm just going to sand a little bit off the top to make sure that your wire fits on it. Cool Tools now has bronze ear wires that are silver with a bronze ball, silver with a gold-filled ball, so you can match your metals and still have silver ear wires, and I really like that a lot. I've been using those products for a long time, and I just, because people are always asking, is that what kind of metal is it? And I just as easy to use silver and then accent it with the ball. I'm going to reinforce the outside too, one more time. And you always want to reinforce your balls 2 to 3 times. Okay, and we are going to go to the finished piece. We're going to fire it, and let me tell you how I fired this. This is a fired piece. I fired it on top of coconut carbon to do a burnout, full ramp to 650, and I held it 30 minutes. Then I gently pulled it out. I put carbon on top, put it gently back in, and then I ramped it full to 1600 for 3 hours. So now we're going to turn this into a mixed metal piece, which I love mixed metal pieces. I think it's really fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, this is straight out of the kiln, and this is what it looks like straight out of the kiln. I'm just going to rough up the surface a little bit. And I have a flat brush because I'm going to be brushing on a little bit more clay. And then I've created slip, and this is, there's lots of different kinds of slip. This one is Aureus slip, and it's really a thick slip, but not so thick that you can't paint it on. So let me get another applicator brush. So there's this middle ground between too thin, but you don't want to be putting water on. You want to be putting actual clay on, because this is going to fire and you want it to look like Aureus. So I'm getting my brush wet. And the first coat, basically you just want to get a coat of slip on there, because the next coat's going to join a lot better if it's not too thick. And then the next coats after this are going to be a lot thicker. So let me pick it up so you can see it a little bit better as I'm doing it. So you see the Aureus across the top, it's looking a little brown colored instead of copper colored. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to dry it. Okay, the first coat is dry, and it's a little hot, so I'm just going to put a second coat on. I'm going to use some water. And now we have a surface that is going to accept a thicker coat of slip. And this is thick clay, this is wet clay, it's not thin slip. And you want to dry it, because then you can, it's going to go on easier. Let me get my little Princeton brush on there to get into the detail. And you just want to get it on there. Once it's dry, you can kind of smooth it out. And you could leave the texture on that. I have a few pieces where I've left texture on, and actually it looks pretty cool. Just leave the rough texture. So I'm going to dry this, and then I'll put on a couple more coats, and then we will just smooth it out and fire it along with our bronze pieces. So let me show you after a couple coats and smoothing it, and then I'll tell you how I fire it. Okay, so we've got a few layers of bronze on there, and I got some bronze on the side, so you want to make sure that comes off, the little tiny bits. Let me get there we go. Let's get because we only want the bronze on the top. Okay, and now I just want to smooth out this top. You can either smooth it out or you can make it really, really rough. I'm going to smooth it out using this brush, which has nap, which will kind of rehydrate it and smooth it out. You could also use a baby wipe. So the smoother you have it going into the kiln, the easier it will be to polish. And at this point, sometimes you want to do a little fill. Okay, now when it's time for firing, and I've smoothed it off, you can dry it a little bit if it seems wet. I put it on top of carbon and do the burnout to 650. And then I put carbon on top and I fire it for 2 hours at 1400. And it'll be beautiful, and we are going to end up with a piece that has 2 metals. So I'm going to show you really quickly how to add Baldwin's patina to brighten up that look. Okay, so I wanted to show you how to emphasize the difference between the bronze and the copper. Here's our piece that's all finished. And I'm going to use something called Baldwin's patina, which I use with mixed metal mokumugame, which also brings out the differences. And I'm going to put it in baking soda afterwards. And I'm being really careful, wearing gloves. And at home I probably would wear a mask. And the baking soda is going to just clean off any remaining Baldwins. So let me get just a little bit. It doesn't take a lot. I'm going to go over here. And really just the tiniest bit, and it darkens the copper, but it just kind of shines up the bronze, so it's got a really nice and you want to put it on really smoothly. Kind of brush it in. So now the copper's darkened up. You can get it to a really, really dark brown. I don't need it to be too dark, but I love that it doesn't affect the bronze at all. So I'm going to rinse it really well in the baking soda, and there you have your shiny mixed metal piece. I wanted to show you a couple different examples using mixed metals. So here's the project we just finished, but here's one where I just painted the bronze along the edge of the copper, and I think it kind of looks like flames, and it's really pretty. This one I had copper balls and I just accented them with bronze. So it's just a touch of bronze. These ones I took Aureus and I painted it after firing on these hoop earrings, and I think this is one of the favorite pieces I've made. And I did a slightly thicker hoop and did the same thing, and I like the textured look. I'm going to show you a little something else you can do. This is white bronze from Hadar, and you can also paint this on, and it tarnishes actually less than silver, and you fire it really low. So it's a fabulous alternative. And you can also take 2 or 3 cards of white bronze and put it on to get a 2 metal look.